You're listening to the Voiceover Casting Corner, a podcast and question and answer session recorded live every month. VCC is brought to you by the Voicecaster. The Voicecaster casts thousands of voices every year across all genres, and we're excited to give you an inside look at the casting process direct from our casting team.
Welcome back to the Voicecaster's Voiceover Casting Corner. Me and Catherine are super excited to be back with you for August. We're doing these once a month, so we're excited to be here and share some things with you guys. We have several things we want to talk about before we get into Q&A, but feel free at any point to drop any questions that you have in the comments, and we'll go back to the beginning and kind of work our way through those to make sure we answer everything that you guys have. So today's topic is the top 4 ways to get cast in voiceover. So this is something that we're asked about all the time. Honestly, we went to VO Atlanta earlier this year, and it was kind of eye-opening with the pandemic and everything, the number of people who didn't really know about not just the Voicecaster, but just kind of casting houses in general. You know, online casting has become such a prominent thing that is kind of fascinating how a lot of the newer generation of voice actors doesn't necessarily know what is out there. You know, everybody thinks it's just the pay-to-play websites, which that is there. There are lots of different ways, and we're going to talk about the top 4, and you'll see that, you know, there of course are more, but it's kind of figuring out what works for you and getting yourself out there and how to market yourself. All of that is super important. So obviously the first way to get cast is through casting directors.
Yeah.
Contrary to popular belief, we do still exist.
Right.
You know, at this stage, it's like we're a luxury for clients, but they're willing to pay for our services because we're going to bring them great talent who actually fit the specs.
Yeah, we save them a lot of time. We weed through all the options, you know, send them the best of the best.
And weed through options we do. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Lately, it's been a lot of weeding through.
That we should. Get your gardening gloves on.
We will discuss that for sure. But, you know, there's the casting houses. It's, you know, we're here. We're still as busy as ever, busier than ever. You know, it's like last week we did 12 different projects. It's like we're crazy busy. And, you know, it's a great way to get your foot in the door. We book a lot of people on their first voiceover jobs, whether they came through classes with us, did the workout group with us, things like that, because we've gotten to know them. And so it's, if we can get to know you and get to know your potential, then the likelihood of us putting you forward to the client in our very small pool of talent is a lot higher. So it's like we, on any given project, we're submitting between 5 people and 30 people. We may get 400, 800, 1,200 auditions, but we are still only submitting 5 to 30. So casting houses are a great way to kind of get your foot in the door and have better opportunities to book the jobs.
Yeah. And probably the next most popular way is through an agent or a manager. And this is, again, kind of, I guess you'd say, the traditional way of doing things. You know, it used to always be you as an actor, you take classes. Once you feel you know what you're doing, you make your demo. Once you've got your demo, you submit it to agents. You get yourself an agent, and they get you auditions. And agents have good connections with casting houses. You know, they hopefully, if they're a good agency, are on the casting house's radar, and they get the projects that the casting house gets, or they have other connections directly to different clients. So that's a good way to get audition copy. And hopefully, again, same thing. If you're, you know, doing all the right stuff, you get submitted and passed along and get yourself a job.
Yeah, agents and managers have all of their own connections. You know, that's one of the benefits of working with them is their connection to the casting directors, but also their connection to different producers.
Yep.
There are producers who are like, oh, I love the agent at whatever agency.
Mhm.
I'm just going to send this to them. I'm sure they have somebody.
Yep.
So it's like they're going to read all their people. No matter what, they're going to book the job because they're only reading their people on it. They're not doing a big casting. So of course that's a great way to get booked as well. Now, of course, there are some agencies that are bigger. There are some agencies that kind of take on anyone. It's like, so, you might have a lot of competition in your agency as well, but it's still a good way to get opportunities that you wouldn't see otherwise.
Exactly.
And it's all about the opportunities. You have to have the opportunities. You can't book anything without the opportunities, right? So, and the third one is networking. So networking kind of encompasses a lot. This is you doing the legwork. So this isn't the agent or managers, doing it for you. This is you putting yourself out there. This is whether it's going to conferences or other voiceover events, whether virtual, in person, whatever, meeting people. It's amazing how many actors end up like, they have a client who's like, oh, I need a voice for this. And then the actor's like, oh, I have a friend who's perfect for that. When they get a
Happens
job.
all the time.
Yeah. So it's getting to know people, getting to, know the engineers who are doing your sessions, also reaching out to recording studios and things like that as well, because a lot of times they need scratch tracks and stuff like that. So it's good to have those sort of connections.
Yep. And then the next top 4, I guess, in popularity would be through a pay-to-play website. So this is your voices.com, Voice123, those kinds of things where you pay a set fee, and that gives you access to auditions that get posted on that site. And then you record the audition or submit your demo on whatever it is, and then the client or whoever's holding the audition will select you from that.
And the pay-to-play websites, those can be somewhat controversial.
Right? It could be its own topic.
I don't necessarily recommend them. I won't tell you not to do them because I know that a lot of people are doing them.
Good for experience and practice.
Find success. And so it's like, we're not going
to be careful.
But you do have to be careful. I have heard a lot of awful stories about things that happen on them. Do your research, join. There's so many different voiceover communities on Facebook and LinkedIn. It's like, join some of those and ask people, get people's opinions, see what works and what doesn't work. I know a big thing right now is, taking all these classes on how to get better with your pay-to-play website, profiles and things like that. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But ultimately, the biggest thing is you have to protect yourself.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that you're not
don't get screwed over with the rate or exactly. Or you're not being taken advantage of.
Yeah. So there are a lot of red flags, a lot of scams out there. And I mean, honestly, there's scams. You could get a scam email just from having a website. So, it's not just on the pay-to-play websites, but a lot of the online casting, just being cautious of it. I know people who make their living that way. So it's like, that's fine too. But being safe, keeping your voice protected. And that's kind of the whole thing right now is keeping your voice protected.
That's right.
We won't even get into that.
Save
that for another day.
Yeah. I will say a great resource for the other 3, the networking, the casting houses, and the agents and managers, is the Voiceover Resource Guide. So if anyone out there is not familiar with that, check them out. They're online. It's just voiceoverresourceguide.com. And it has a list for all the major markets, LA, New York, and I think Chicago, right?
Yeah. And I think they even have a tab now for region.
Oh, cool.
So like other regions as well. So yeah,
and that'll list you all the agents, all the casting houses, studios, everything you need as a voiceover actor is in that book or in that website, on that website.
So yeah, voiceoverresourceguide.com.
Yeah, that can be a great place to get started and really get yourself a nice list of people to submit to.
There we go. And it's constantly growing. And it's like the other
they update it at least twice a year, I think, right?
A little plug, but they have a really cool interactive feature on there where if you're looking for a recording studio in a specific like, oh, like I'm on vacation in Philadelphia. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, is there a studio here? I booked a job, and it's like you can go on there and you can search and find studios and things nearby as well. So it's a great resource to have. All right. So another thing, so those are the main top 4 ways to get cast in voiceover. Of course, there are other ways, it's the list goes on. There are so many different ways that you can end up getting jobs. People fall into it all the time. So, don't rule any of that out, but these are really the main things to focus on as you're getting started or growing your career. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about was we got an email this morning from somebody who said that they actually were on the casting side on a pay-to-play website, just helping a friend out. And he said, first of all, he's like, I'm so happy I'm an actor, not a casting director, like props. But one thing that he noticed is that the higher tier people, so the people who pay more
to play.
pay more on the website. I don't know how it all works, so but the higher tiered people were doing less editing. Their files sounded just more raw and just they weren't over edited. And then the people in the lower tiers, they heard a lot more editing, taking breaths out, and whether it's compression, EQ, all of that, but essentially files that were over processed. So he was asking if he stumbled upon some revelation with this and why these higher tiered people were editing less and keeping the files more in a raw state. And when me and Catherine read that email, we had the same thought of, don't edit.
Stop editing your files.
Yeah, but you do not need to take off breaths. No. People breathe. Breathe.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I know people expect to hear you breathe. I mean, if it's a big gasp, of course, take that out. But just your normal everyday breaths as you're saying things, that's fine. Don't worry about that. That stuff gets covered up too once they add music and stuff for the final spot. So don't worry about that kind of thing.
Let them edit how they want to. It's like if you start doing too many, presets and EQing and things like that, it's like the client can't do anything. And we were actually just listening to a couple of people, who had questions about like their presets or their stacks, whatever you want to call them, that engineers had done for them. And one of them, it's like she sent her raw audio and it sounded great just as it was. And she was just talking. She's like, hey, Kelly, blah, blah, blah. And then she did her presets and she applied that. And it almost sounded like she was underwater. Like it was just kind of.
It was just a little fuzzy. It didn't sound as good.
No, the raw file sounded way better. Plus, there's more that they can do with it. If they want to put you to picture and things like that, they don't want it all over edited. I have actually had clients also ask us about, like, do you think they can get through it all in one take? Because it sounds like, there's no breaths, but did they piece together their whole audition? And it's like, yes, I'm sure they can get through it in one take, but you're not putting your best foot forward when you're editing all of that.
Yeah, you might think it's a clean edit, but you can hear that kind of stuff sometimes, and it just sounds weird. It takes you out of it.
Yep. And it's like if it really bothers you, maybe quieting it a little bit, but when you take it completely out, it's like we start to wonder, like.
And remember, as actors, you're kind of your own worst enemy. You're going to hear every little thing that anybody else that listens to it, they're not even going to notice it. So those breaths that you're so like, oh gosh, like anybody else listening's not going to even hear it. So don't think too much about that kind of stuff.
Keep that in mind as you start doing this too. Start trying to not edit your breaths out. Start trying to not edit in general, as far as like the post-production kind of stuff. Obviously,
take your pickups out, but
if we're asking for 2 takes, don't send us all 10 takes that you recorded to get your 2 takes. Edit that, but you don't need to edit every little breath, every little thing like that.
This isn't the final spot. It's just an audition.
Things like that, just leave it. So that's such a huge thing that we hear all the time. I mean, I've had some that were so like, I was like, oh, this read is really good, but man, the audio is like
Yeah.
not right. I can tell it's just over processed. And we booked somebody one time on something that was over processed, and they got into the session, and the client was like, they're not as deep as their audition. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
must have been something they did in the editing. But you better believe we do not submit that person anymore, because I
You
can't
can't
trust
trust
their
what their
audio
file is.
anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just want you. And it's as you start to play with this and incorporate that into your auditions, it's going to be so hard at first, because you're going to hear, if you're used to taking your breaths out, you are going to hear every little thing, and you're going to be like, I cannot send that. You absolutely
Yes, you can.
I promise you. In fact, we will like it more. So, and this goes for everywhere. It's like, you're not producing the final spot. Don't feel like you need to try to make it perfect. It's like, we're
Yeah.
listening for that authenticity, that connection. And then that's also the other thing is, so often clients, especially on the conversational stuff, right? So often clients are asking us for imperfections. We want to hear imperfections. It's like,
Yeah, they just want it to sound raw and real.
yeah. So why are you editing
Why are
out
you?
all your imperfections?
Exactly.
Don't do it. And keep it simpler for you. You're going to find
Right.
that editing all of a sudden got a whole lot easier if you take
Mhm.
our advice. So something
Exactly.
to think about for sure. We have something that we want to really reiterate to everybody before we get into some questions, but feel free to throw any questions you guys have in the comments. I see a couple in there. I almost went on Instagram live the other day. Just
Really had a
I was like,
meltdown last week.
maybe I shouldn't vent. I'll let it cool off for a few days, and we'll talk about it today. So, but one thing that we have been seeing and has been driving us crazy is what, Catherine?
People submitting on things they're not right for. If the
Mm,
spec is 25 to 35 and you sound 55, why are you reading on this?
It's a waste of your time, and it's a waste of our time. You're allowed to pass on things.
Yes,
In fact, in
please.
that situation, passing is more respectful.
Yeah, if
But
you're not right for
you're not
something and
wasting
you
our
know you're
time
not,
or yours.
yeah, it's okay. Yeah, like your agent, some agents just send the auditions they get out to everybody on their roster. And so they're leaving it up to you to know what you're appropriate for.
Yeah.
So if you don't fit the age, if you don't fit the spec, if they're looking for a British voice and you're not British, don't be reading on these things,
Yeah.
because it's like Kelly said, it's a waste of your time. It's a waste of our time. You're just going to make the casting or whoever's listening mad, because they're like, why am I wasting my time on this? So you don't want to make a bad impression. So know what you can do, know what your limitations are as well.
Yep. And be honest with that. It's like, don't, everybody always talks about it. It's like a numbers game. And if you book 1 out of 100, you're doing great. And it's like, that number could be better if you're
But
only
that's
auditioning
100
for the
auditions that you're right
right
for.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's something to really consider. Like Catherine said, some agents will curate and only send to their top talent. Some just send everything out to everybody, and people feel like they have to read on it, or they feel like, oh, I need to be 20. Okay, I'm gonna do this, and I can be young. And it's like,
No,
no, that doesn't work.
no.
I have actual 20-year-olds. Like, I don't need a 40, 50-year-old pretending to be 25. And that was really one of our biggest things, is like, we did 4 rounds of casting on a project last week and early this week. And the biggest thing was like, everybody sounds too old. Everybody sounds too old. And it's like, everybody,
They
we're
are
getting
old.
too old. And the client finally got to the point, and they're like, instead of just sending us your top 10, do you just want to like send everybody? And I was like, I am not sending you 200 or more auditions that aren't even close to your specs. Like, I'm not going to waste your time. And I'll be honest, like, most of the time, Catherine can do this too. Like, we look through these names and we're like, too old,
No,
too old, too old. It's like, figure out what zone you're in and stick to it. You're going to have more success that way. And we're going to like you a lot.
Nobody can do everything. So it's okay to pass.
I mean, especially on the commercial side. It's like you have like a good 10 to maybe 15-year age range of things that you'd be right for. And that's about it. It's like if you're too much further off than that.
Otherwise, it starts to sound cartoony, which is great for animation. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's fake. And what is everybody asking for?
Real.
We want real people, conversational,
Right?
authentic, approachable, personable. Like, the list goes on and on.
Being true to yourself is always best.
Putting on something. Yeah. Be true to yourself. Right. Shall we?
Let's dive into some questions
here. All right. When sending multiple takes, how much of a range do you like to hear? And do you think it's advantageous to put your boldest take first to stand out? Yes and yes. We will always have on our breakdowns how many takes to do. Typically, it's 2 to 3 takes. We really like to hear at least 2. So most of the time, if somebody only sends 1, but we are asking for 2 or 3, we won't even submit that 1, even if it's right on and amazing, because we need to hear some range. There are other casting directors who may only ask for 1 take. If they only ask for 1 take, honor that. Obviously, always follow the instructions. For us, we always ask for 2 or 3. Sometimes we're more specific about what we need 1 or 2 takes of each script if there's 2 different versions or things like that. But usually at least 2 or 3 so that we can hear your range. And then as far as your boldest take, I love bold takes, but I don't want you to do something different just for the sake of being different. So don't be bold just to stand out. It still has to work with the script, if that makes sense. So it's like whatever your strongest take is, which my guess is probably going to be the take with your personality, the take that's truer to you, which oftentimes is people's bolder take, then yes, put that first. And then you can put your safer take second.
Yeah, I always tell people, trust your gut. If you really feel strongly about 1 take, put that one first. Yeah. But yeah, don't be different just to be different, because again, that goes back to what we were saying about staying true to yourself. It's just going to come off as kind of odd, or sometimes you get those weird auditions. You're like, what were they doing? So yeah, still staying kind of within the spec, but
so many odd things. So many odd things. All right, so Alex,
how many agencies can you have within a region? Usually just
great
1.
question. Just 1, yeah. But it kind of depends on what the agency says.
Yeah.
So it's like you can have 1 in LA, but you could also have 1 in San Francisco. So it's like those are far enough apart that they're not considered the same region. Now, I know of a couple of agencies in Minneapolis, and they cover like 4 states. It's like Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota. Like they cover states that are pretty sparse with agencies anyway. So it's like, that's fine if that agent covers those 4 states. So it's kind of looking at what they say, but typically 1 per region is fine. So you could have LA, New York, Chicago, Seattle, Minneapolis, San Francisco, Denver, Atlanta. I know people who have 7 or 8 agents. The biggest thing with that is making sure that you have your primary agent, so that when you're getting it from multiple agents, if you're getting the same thing from like 4 different agents, you don't necessarily want to be submitting through all 4 agents. It's a little bit confusing on our end, but submitting through your primary agent, which is usually your home agent. So, like if you're in Los Angeles, it would be your LA agent. If you're in Atlanta, it would be your Atlanta agent. All right, Stacy is kind of adding on to this. I have agents in different places. If I have the same audition for 2 and I submit the first one, we get after ours. That's a great question. So it goes along the lines with, submitting to your home agent. However, sometimes a regional agent will be a lot faster to get it to you. And it's like you've already read on it. And then, then it's okay to submit to both. We do get auditions that are from 2 different agents, and that's totally fine. Usually it's like I'll either go with who submitted you first, which agency submitted it first, or, if I know you're in LA and your LA agent is your primary agent, then I'll go through the LA agent. So sometimes it just kind of depends on that sort of relationship as well. All right. When your rep is formed to submit to CD Studios, and No, absolutely not. Your agents want you to be making those connections. They want you to be submitting. It's one of those things where it's like you have to work just as hard as your agent, probably harder than your agent. So absolutely keep at it, get yourself out there, get to know the casting directors, get to know the studios, all of that on your own. And yeah, that'll definitely
This is your career, so do what you need to do to get those jobs and to make it work for you.
Yeah. And a lot of people, it's like they work through pay to play websites, or they'll do stuff directly with us that, it's like if we sent it to them, but their agent didn't, then they'll be like, I just want to do it directly. They don't want to lose the commission to their agent because the agent didn't technically find the job for them or negotiate for them or, anything like that. So, it's totally a preference, but, you can absolutely, and you should be doing a lot of the legwork on get yourself out there for sure. I do want to mention our accent class. It is taught by Andrew Frankel, who is the accent man, and he was going to join us today to kind of just talk a little bit and give you guys some accent info, but he's working.
He's a working actor.
He's a working actor. So we're going to hop on with him at some point next week. We're going to come on live and, he'll give you guys some more information about it. But it's a pretty amazing class. Actually, here, I didn't pay her to say this either. Accent class is phenomenal. Highly recommend. Thank you, Stacey. But yeah, it's like Andrew knows his stuff, and he teaches you not just from like a doing voices perspective. He teaches you like the reason accents are accents. And, he kind of does like this, like essentially the 6 weeks are like a world tour. You will go to like 5 different regions and you get to pick the accent that you want to work on in each region. So if you're in LA and you have 6 Tuesdays free to come over to our studio, it's a fantastic class.
It's only August, but we're coming towards the end of the year for our classes. Just as holidays come up and things, it gets really busy at the end of the year. So a lot of our classes are starting up in the next month or so, and it'll be the final round for the year. So make sure if you want to get in and learn from us, get on our radar. That's a great way to do it. And you can find out all the information on our website. It has the list of the classes we offer, prices, start dates, and you can sign up there too.
Especially in studio. So many things are not in studio right now. So it's
like our accents class.
People are always asking about when, classes and stuff. And actually, Susie right here, when are you going to start doing auditions in the studio?
When the renovations are done.
When the renovations are done in about 6 years. No, just kidding. We are getting so close to having the office done, and then we'll be moving into all the other areas. But yes, we have been doing renovations. So as soon as renovations are done, we want to get more of the auditions back in studio. Obviously, you will always have the opportunity to record from wherever you are, remotely if you prefer, that kind of a thing too. We do have, limited number of appointments and stuff available, but you can always email us. Voicecaster@gmail.com is the best email if you want to set up an appointment to come in, whether it's an audition for us that you want to come in and work with one of us on, or if it's an outside audition, we do have a service called VO and Go. It's $10 for 10 minutes. And that gets you our direction as well on anything. So any audition that you have from an outside source, whether it's
your agent,
pay to play website, agent, whatever. It's just $10 for 10 minutes. And we have appointment times every day, but they're limited. So, make sure you reach out if that's something that you're interested in. And we do those both in studio and
you can do them over Zoom or over the phone too.
Zoom. Renovations always take triple the time. Anytime you need to run to the Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, never just once. You always got to go back because something wasn't right, or you needed something else, or you need more. Which class of Voicecaster do you recommend for working pros? We have a few different options. So there's the commercial pros class, which is a 4-week class. There is also the audition techniques class, which is a 3-week class where we focus on auditioning, self-direction, that kind of a thing. Honestly, I've had a lot of working pros also take the commercial 2 class with me because, it's like we're working on so many scripts. I bring it to whatever level you're at. And we do have 2 weeks in that class where we're working one-on-one. And Catherine actually guest directs one of the weeks. I teach the other 5. And that class is also great for just digging into commercial copy, and we start to break down all of the different categories within commercials. So that one
Would finding you in commercials fall into that too?
Yep, absolutely. Keeping it conversational with Catherine would be another one. And then on the animation side, the animation intensive, the 1-day intensive would be good for working pros, and the intermediate animation and video games as well.
An agent is not listed in the VO guide. Does that mean they're no longer in business? And no, I wouldn't say so. It just means they're not in the voiceover resource guide.
Yeah, and it kind of depends, on who it is. If you're looking at the list, like if you're looking at the list that I gave you from the marketing and agent seminar, so much has changed in just the last 6 months.
Yeah, agents move around a lot too.
And a few agencies have just kind of dissolved, or VO departments have closed. Some agencies, like they opened up a brand new agency because the agents from what agency were gone. So all kinds of crazy stuff has happened recently. Yes. Yeah, Stacy, a few big agencies recently closed. Yeah, it's been very interesting. And then to see where some people have moved. And then it's like we've also seen a couple of agents leave the agency that they were with, and they were like the one and only VO agent there. So that now that agency doesn't even have a VO department, and they went and joined a different agency. So then that's, one less thing too. Brought their whole roster over, things like that. So it's been interesting how much movement there has been. Susie, what's the best conference you'd recommend to attend? All have different perks. Honestly, I would say look at who is
look what they're talking about. See what interests you. Yeah. See if there's anything there that you want to go and learn about.
And see who's there. See who you want to network with, So Voss, that's Voiceover conference is coming up in December in LA. So that's an option.
That could be a good one to try if you've never been to one before and you live out here.
Yep.
VO Atlanta is the largest one, right?
That's the biggest one. Yeah, that's probably the most well-known. One Voice just happened in Dallas last weekend or 2 weekends ago. That one's a little bit smaller. And then there is also the Mid-Atlantic VO conference, and that's coming up. I want to say it's in September, and that's a boutique one. So that one is a lot more intimate. So it's like, if you're like, I don't want to be in these huge crowds, then that might be one that you want to go to. They all kind of have their benefits. Keep an eye on our socials. We have some super, super exciting stuff coming up, and I'm so excited. I'm gonna share a tiny bit with you right now. We have something brand new in the works, and we're going to be officially announcing it very soon. But it's new online digital course with a 12-week mastermind option, where I'm going to be working with just a few select people for 12 weeks, and we're going to make magic happen. And I'm so excited. And we've been working on this for months. So I'm excited that it's going to finally be happening very soon. So yeah, keep an eye on our social media. We are getting everything ready and lined up, and we will be opening enrollment for that very soon, within the next 2 weeks. Excellent. So thank you all for joining us today. And hopefully we will see you in September.
Talk to you next month.
And as always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to email us, throw them in, the comments on this video, things like that. And if you can't make it live, at least we can answer any questions that you have during the next podcast.
Our next AMA.
Make sure you get those answered.
That's right.
All right. We will see you all very soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Catch our next Voiceover Casting Corner episode live on Facebook and YouTube. Check our socials or follow us for the latest info. Thanks for listening.